you are up next.
Hello. I don't know if I need this or not, but it looks better than this part of me does anyway, so. I just wanted to start out, first of all, by making sure I acknowledge the VSA and the Veterans Administration for everything they've done for me to help me be here tonight. It might not seem like much of a stage, but it's a big victory for some of us. Before I got involved with the VSA, I was just a lazy coward who would beat himself up constantly for everything he's never done in his life, but yet still not do anything in his life. And now, you know, I have still that same life to look back on, but now I'm not a lazy coward. I'm a person who happens to have a flaw, who still struggles to do things, but doesn't sit around and beat himself up so much anymore. I have a flaw, but it's not a character flaw. I used to have a character flaw. It's just a flaw. It makes a big difference. It's a subtle difference, but it makes a big difference. So I was gonna read a letter that I wrote to VSA. In one of the classes that they put on, they encouraged me to do like a therapy kind of a letter, you know, where you write to your dad, but you just burn it and never show anybody, you know, those kind of things. But we're all having so much fun tonight. I didn't really want to read that one. So instead, happy Father's Day, wherever you are. And I'm writing a story, and this is the beginning to the story. So it's more fun than the other option. And I'm curious to see what people think about the beginning of my story. The story is going to be called My Babbling Heart. You're all blurry now. It'll be called My Babbling Heart, and this will be the first chapter, which introduces Mr. Tyler Beck, the name of the chapter. There is something about being outside, all alone, on a peaceful blue night, with a larger than it ought to be full moon, which makes one think of love. Now picture this. You're standing in a large open meadow of a wonderful county park. Overhead is the aforementioned night sky, deep blue and blanketing the largest full moon that there has ever been in the history of love stories. It's so bright that even your dog Cyrano creates a shadow as he sniffs at all the telltale smells of the day. You sit down on the grassy bank of a noisy creek, not far from a peaceful waterfall made of some fallen logs that hold back a small pond of water. Just add a hopeful romantic and you have all the necessary ingredients for babble. By sitting perfectly still, you allow a frog to move out into the moonlight and serenade you. In response, a squirrel rustles on a nearby tree limb. Maybe the squirrel feels it too. Maybe the frog is describing it in his song. The wonderful babble of creek and critter under the spotlight of the moon are literally forcing me to think of it, of love. Love is my hope to calm the rustling of lonely. But the catch to feeling that relief is first I must feel some pain. You know what I mean. The craving for those familiar feelings that are not yet born. The relentless passage of time which demands its own existence. The blind darkness that contains the beauty of her unknown soul. The only fact I'm allowed to know for certain is that I love a person, somebody out there, but I haven't seen her yet. Can I choose a different life instead of a life where I make all my decisions save for this one most important decision? But who would I choose? I can't even see, at least not in the clinical sense. But what about the blue night sky that I saw? Well, I have a trick for that. What about the two full moon that I described? Same trick, it's my favorite secret. What about the pond in the babbling creek? Well, I didn't say I was deaf. These are the ingredients that stories are made of. And in this moment that begins my story, a story which was a heart-crushing moment away from disaster, and went like this. Tyler Beck was sitting on the bank of a babbling creek located in the middle of his county's local park when he stood up. Instead of stepping away from the water, he slipped and fell. The result was not too bad. He mostly landed on dry land. However, one unlucky foot plopped into the cool water. The splash that his foot made in the water scared off a couple of frogs that had been serenading each other. The sudden noise also brought a family of squirrels out of a hole in a tree, in a nearby tree, to fuss at Tyler. He laughed, a good long, hearty laugh. There were tears in his eyes, but at this point in time, he was unable to discern why. That's when it happened. It must have been a strong wind, though it seemed but a gentle breeze. Maybe Tyler was protected from it slightly by the very bank that he had fallen down. But most definitely, though, it was the strange angle he was looking up from as his head landed on the ground. But there, next to the waterfall in the creek, was a beautiful woman. At least it appeared to be a woman. The breezy wind seemed to have created a spout of mist, which quickly turned to cloud and then started melting back down into the falling water. But for a precious long moment, the cloud of mist lingered, and inside this cloud lived the most beautiful woman Tyler had ever seen. Wait, Tyler lifted himself as he spoke to the vision. Are you real? Looking toward the two frogs, he noticed that they seemed to have reacted to it also, almost in an animated way, while the squirrel family turned quiet, and Papa Squirrel was now next to him on the ground, chirping sternly. The squirrel wasn't mad, the squirrel was amazed. It directed Tyler's attention back to the woman. Whatever it was saying, though, it was so profound as to transcend species. No human word was spoken, but Tyler agreed with the little guy 100%. Then, the woman in the mist raised her hand to her lips, and in emotion, threw a kiss to Tyler's direction. As she lowered her arm after tossing the kiss, the vision of her dissolved. Tyler scrambled to his knees and rubbed his eyes, and indeed, there was no longer any sign of a vision. The frogs and the family of squirrels were gone. Papa Squirrel was back on his branch, but was nibbling away at something he could care less what Tyler thought about. Ah yes, love. No longer light of moon, instead a reflection of beauty. No longer babble of creek, instead wave of desire. No longer harmony of nature, instead prophecy of love. And no longer a kiss, instead a wish.